Fantastic Four. Seen the movie, obviously, of course. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be here talking about it. Anyway, just go ahead. I was like, it's been out a while. I know, and I had like a little bit of drop off or whatever. But hey, that's besides the point. Who cares? I'm here to talk about what I wanted to talk about. Man, this had to not. We're gonna go this way. There we go. Ha, a little bit better. Anyway, Fantastic Four came out, and get it out of the way. It's a very good movie, and I think it's really solid. I think that those two things are not necessarily the same. So, I think that what I mean by it being solid is that I think that it did the job of what it was supposed to do of introducing the family really well, throwing in the Surfer and Galactus, and doing a good job at those, and just really just giving the dynamics of the world and stuff like that. Like I think it was really just solid in that type of way of, and I was like, especially for a Marvel movie, because I was like, I think they really needed to hit on solid. Cause I know that some people can hear solid and think that it's like a little bit above average or whatever. But I was like, I think that when I say solid, I'm trying to say it hit all its like points that it needed to hit for everybody to be like, for it to come out and be like, it was a really good movie. I was like, I think, and it's funny enough, because I was like, there'll be a comparison, obviously, to Superman for this whole time. But I think in the same way that it gave off really early that it was going to be not, I was like, it wasn't serious like something was necessarily ending. Because I was like, we didn't get that in a little bit until Galactus showed up, but it did give a serious tone. It didn't go the normal Marvel route of being ready for quips. It wasn't so like colorful and out there. Like the world looked good, but it wasn't blindly colorful. I guess that's what I'm gonna say. Um, so I think that's what I'm saying in the fact that I'm like, oh, I was like, and I think that's the route they needed to go because I was like, especially with this movie, just because I was like, in like their last several movies, I don't think they necessarily hit the what movie is serious, what movie can be jokey. I feel like they got that a little bit wrong or whatever. That's not saying that there wasn't jokes here, but the jokes that like Johnny was saying and things like that were a little bit just like little couple jabs or whatever when he was just like, oh, you're gonna be a great mother, and he's like, oh, you're gonna be a great dad. Now I'm just playing or whatever, something like that. I think that when we got like guy like Mole Man, that was more of the Marvel tone of jokes. That was a lot more. Oh no, we're actually trying to we're being funny here. We're trying to get them LOLs right here. Um, I think it's funny that I was like, I know the Fantastic Four is what basically modeled the Incredibles, which I feel like also modeled these Fantastic Four. You get what I'm saying? Because I was like, it's funny because it really just starts as basically Incredibles 2 in a way where it's like the main villain is the Mole Man. I was like, we already see what the family is. The baby the whole time is really. I was like, they don't show it, but you get the interpretation that it's really like Jack Jack, where it's like a baby that has powers, don't know really how to control them, they're just doing stuff. Um, I was like, so I was like, I think they did that, and I think they sort of follow suit in the same way of basically who were the characters that you sort of like gave, like, even though Mr. Fantastic and Sue Storm are like the leaders of the team in the same way that Mr. Incredible and Ms. Incredible are, the adults. The team, I feel like the Thing and I feel like Johnny Storm were really the characters they fleshed out the most, just the ways they did with like Dash and Violet, is that they were like, we need to enhance them because those the other two, them sort of being like the main character, you sort of know, like, you kind of already get what they are. Let's try to I don't want to call them side character, but you get what I'm saying. Like, let's put more over here because they can easily just fall in the background. And I think sometimes that movies don't do that. Is that your character that can easily fall into the background or side character, you need to sort of bring them up to the forefront because I was like, it's always going to be I was like Mr. Fantastic or Super. Like this, they're always sort of going to be involved, but the other one can easily just fall back and just be like, yeah, yes, man, and all this other stuff. So I think they really did a good job on them. I was like, I think that they also didn't. They were all subtle in their ways of like team building, roster building, like to knowing their roles or whatever. Like John, like they made quibs about like Johnny Storm being like a ladies guy, but not in a way of like a ladies guy, but more so in the fact of like, oh snap, I was like, it's a hot chick, with the surfer and stuff like that. But then they also made it where like he used that in order to do something productive with the team. I was like, I was like, he was bummed out seeing himself from when he was a human and this, but that didn't stop him from still, being like, oh snap, there's some kids. All right, I'm gonna put on a smile. I'm gonna do something for the kids. Ooh, who's this nice lady? Oh wait, hold on. Let me get my rocks together so I can try to be a little bit more like, hey, how you doing? I was like, I was like, so he wasn't just down in the dumps, just woe is me. I was like, no, he was still able to have fun. He was still able to joke around with everybody and stuff like that. In which I feel like in some way they had a hard time doing that in some of the other films and stuff. And also, I was like, I think they made Sue Storm really ace. Like, I was like, I really think that even though it's like we, Mr. Fantastic, I was like, I really think that they made her basically the focal point of this whole thing outside, her kid. It's the one that the movie like goes around. As Mr. Fantastic, Reed is sort of in the background. He's like, yo, I'm gonna do all the tech stuff. Y'all can do all the other stuff. How about that? Yeah, that's good. That's good. But they also made him. I think they made him a different kind of nerd. Like they didn't have him overtly just show how smart he is. He didn't have everything because I would say to me it was a little bit more realistic, because I was like most of the people who are like either like they're doing all the science stuff like that. Some of them don't have the I'm gonna talk to the crowd and stuff like that in that type of way. You get what I'm saying? Like he's not overtly out there in some way where we like you almost see it with like the tech people we have now. They're not really strong talking or being like out there talking or whatever like that. And I was like, I feel like that's what I got from him, because I was like, in the old movies, well, especially like the 2000 ones, he was able to talk, he was able to tech, he was showboaty, he was all this stuff that I'm like, you didn't really get that with people who are that in that type of way, where he seemed like this one he's more reserved. I was like, he was over here. He's sometimes doing so much that he forgets to do other things, or some things he just like it doesn't see as a top priority. That doesn't mean he can't do it. It just means that his head is like, no, I'm doing this or whatever. He sometimes doesn't necessarily read the social cues and stuff like that. So I was like, I think they formed this one up really well. So I was like, the baby being the whole conduit for the whole thing, I was fine with. I was like, I think that it was a cool reasoning to have Galactus even more urgent to come here, because he was already coming here, but a lot more hell bent. Kind of like maybe you take his time or whatever like that. But I like the mix of the technological advances they had while still looking old timey. And I was like, I've seen people sort of talk about it or whatever, but to me, it always makes me think that how stuff in our society is like this much different by whatever decision stuff people make or whatever like that. Like this event, like whose invention do we rock with, and then we put the money behind it, and that's the way that we go. And then we're just on this path where it's like, oh, we could have been on this path, we could have taken us all the way here as well. So I was like, I like that pretty much the advances that from like reading all them. I was like, it seemed like they solved whatever seemed to be a lot of the world problem. I know there were still villains, but the villains weren't really a crazy threat. It really seems like, I'm not gonna lie, the villains that they had when he sort of started policing everything due to the baby made it seem like they were really just kind of like villains to have so you wouldn't get bored in that world. I would like from the Future Foundation setting that up to basically like the surprising thing to me is when it was talking about spacesuits and going to space and finding Galactus. I was just like, oh man, how are they gonna do that? Not really realizing they got a whole time warping machine to where they could just go. And I was like, when they was over here finding like the Silver Surfer and being like where they were able to go and stuff like that, I was kind of like how did they got visual whatever they were doing. But now it sort of makes sense that it's like, and then the rest of the world is kind of like, hey, all we're going to do, I guess, is focus on the stuff that's going on in each of these countries. Because it doesn't seem like anybody else got their own space program or nothing like that. It seems like, nah, Fantastic Four got all this. Why we need to do anything? We'll just focus on, I guess, the economy of things or whatever. But I thought the best part of the movie was them going to Galactus, finding him, getting in his ship, confronting him, seeing how he actually looked and how big he was. And then also the Silver Surfer doing her whole surfing in all of the, I was like with the fire and lava, the bend around the black hole. I also thought like that was cool of how they had the baby during all of that stuff too. The whole bend, I thought that was awesome. Yeah, I was like that probably was the coolest parts to me. The ending, I will say, it's sort of like, I was like, it's sort of a mixed bag, just because it's like on one hand, the Sue Storm using all her powers to fight back to Galactus. I get it. I do get it. Like, kind of like, I do understand. I'm like, your baby's on the line. Guess what? That mom power that allows you to pick up a car basically was like, I'm going to give it my all. Hell or high water. I'm going to die. I'm taking this guy out. I will say that I feel like that's also where Reed, as smart as he was to be like, oh man, we're just gonna try to teleport this Earth, and then it's like, hey, hold on, we could just teleport him. I thought the whole baby thing was kind of a little bit stupid. As far as you didn't see that, like, not necessarily that you see that not coming, but the execution of it, I'm just like, I feel like that was really more of y'all needed to have like a last second thing where it's like Johnny just flies in, snatch him up, hit the machine or something like that. Just because I'm like, this being, you think you're gonna trick him that well, especially once the server comes in and starts destroying all of the like the points. Then I'm like, okay, so obviously they're smart enough to know that you were trying to do something crazy. Maybe they gonna think that he's gonna be able to figure out the baby. He can sense the baby. He obviously seen that the baby had powers on his ship. You don't think that he be able to know where the baby's at? You don't think that, I was like, you lured him there based off the baby. You don't think once you switch the baby that he wouldn't be able to find out what, anyway. Anywho. And also, the whole training the baby in for I was like, I understand that whole thing of like, oh, I'm not gonna trade in my son just to save all of y'all, but that doesn't mean that we won't try. You know, the whole speech she gave, speech was a lot, but I do think that people being mad about it, it's always one of them things in a superhero movie that I'm like, especially here where I'm like, y'all done had these superheroes for a while. What y'all really mad about? Y'all that mad? That's like y'all don't understand. It's like I understand that you're like, what? How? Like we're gonna die over just one baby. But I feel like there's too many of y'all to have that thought. Like a good amount of people that's like, forget that baby, bump that baby. But I was like, for that many people that were mad, I feel like if you was there to try to get answers to your question, okay. But to be like, let's give the baby up is a little bit extreme to me. Or with the thought of what is their thought process in this world. You get what I'm saying? Like, y'all don't have any other problems, but this one problem happens, and all of a sudden, you know, like, if that happened in real life, I would totally understand seeing the mob of people that's like, charge up there. But not in their world. Even in the 616 Marvel, I will understand it way more than I do here or whatever. But like I said, a little small nitpick. I was like, I like Johnny Storm figuring out her language and just like putting in that time and crunching and watching tape. Um, I like the battles they sort of had with uh, Sue Mr. Fantastic, sort of just like where you could tell like he's not sensing that how she feels about this whole thing, even though she's over here like, I know your science brain how you want to deal with this. Um, yeah, I was like them, even though I was like them being able them evacuating the city is one of the things that I don't feel like they do enough in superhero movies when you know something's about to go down. It's different than something just like about to happen. But I'm like, for the most part, they do know that something's about to go down, and it's kind of like, yo, they better get out the hell out of the way, otherwise, destruction. Um, yeah, I was like, Doom showing up at the end. I did like they didn't do anything with Doom, and they basically saved him to that tease, because I do think that if he was in the movie, it'd be a lot more of like, what's his relationship with Reed? What are they about to do with Doom? All this kind of stuff that I feel like could have taken away from the movie. Especially if they did have Galactus, but if they didn't have Galactus, you had Doom in there. Then it's like they would have to defeat Doom, but also him going into his movie. It might be a little bit of harsh shade. So I was like, I like that they saved the tease to the end, to where it's just kind of like, he's around, he's there. They did enough tease and stuff, but they didn't give you the full one until the sort of the end. It still wasn't there, and and he's over here with the baby now. It's been like a few years that have passed. But yeah, so good movie. I was like, very good movie, solid movie. This is one of their better movies. I want to say, like, well, of course, in like the last couple years. I really like. I was like, outside Deadpool and Guardians 3, but I don't like to really count those to me. But anyway, I do think that's one of their better movies. And I think in general of their catalog, because I think if this would have been like the movie they could have done, I want to say a little bit after the 2020, or the whole time. I think Marvel and Marvel fans would have felt better about the current state than what they sort of in. The drop, I was like, I think that they'll be fine. It's Marvel. I think they'll be fine. I was like I said, the word of mouth of this movie is good on all ends. I was like, if they keep, depending on how long they keep it in the theater, I feel like it'll bounce back a little bit after or whatever. But I think they'll be fine in the end, because like I said, it was a really good movie or whatever. But yeah. Anyway, I was like, this looks like a solar flare, but it's 2-4 to separate the. It's Fantastic Four. Anyway, I'm out.